everybody. Welcome back to Collision, where all of our stories collide. Thank you for joining today. It's wonderful. Starting season 3 of this first conversation is with Jenny Booth Potter. She's the author of Doing Nothing is No Longer an Option, One Woman's Journey into Everyday Anti-Racism. And this book, for me, honestly, has been an eye-opener in a different way of thinking about race and racism. And so go and download her book. If you have a Kindle, go buy the book. If you have Spotify, you can listen to the book on their podcast platform. It is available there. That is Doing Nothing is No Longer an Option, One Woman's Journey into Everyday Anti-Racism. So thank you again for tuning into season 3. Here's my conversation with Jenny Booth Potter. Enjoy.
Well, Nick, it's so nice to officially meet you. Thanks so much for having me join you in this conversation. My name is Jenny Booth Potter. I am a 40-something Midwestern mom of 2, and I am an author. I wrote my first book, Doing Nothing is No Longer an Option, One Woman's Journey into Everyday Anti-Racism. That came out fall of 22. I work currently in the nonprofit sector. I am the senior manager for storytelling and engagement for the nonprofit Together Rising. And what else about me? I recently moved to St. Paul, Minnesota from Chicago suburbs. So that has been a very interesting, it's interesting to move into a place that was the epicenter of so much news and, you still see the remnants of the impact of the murder of George Floyd here in the city, and really see the people of the Twin Cities grappling with what next? What do we do out of this? And so there are some exciting things that are happening, and it's also really, it's really brutal to be reminded of. Yeah. Of that moment in our, not just like our country's history, but in this like region's history, and how much hope for change really occurred in that summer, and how my take is how very little has actually happened. And so it's bittersweet to drive around and see so many Black Lives Matter signs, and also to see that contrasting with bills coming out against book bans and DEI offices closing. And so it's this very, it's a bittersweet kind of reminder. It almost feels like a living memorial or something of not just George Floyd, but also of what that era kind of was and came and went. And so, so I live in Minnesota.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, I think for a lot of us, there are signs of all sorts still just lining our streets, flags in people's cars. And it's just a cry of like desperation of we want change. And it's from both sides of kind of the political spectrum, wanting their own change and not really wanting to kind of meet in the middle. And even if there is a middle, we don't even know what that would even look like yet. And so it's still, it's like you said, a living memorial of what has happened and what continues to happen. And yeah, I think about that of recently we just moved across the country, and from Southern California. It's tough because for me, it was like, oh, I'm in Southern California, I'm in San Diego, I'm near Los Angeles, very much a lot of culture around not only African American culture, but Hispanic culture and Asian American culture. And myself being second generation Filipino, and going through 2020 and fearing for my mom, who looks a lot more Asian than me, and fearing for cousins and stuff. Just fearing attack, fearing racial slurs for my own family, and then even looking at myself and saying, wow, I am half Asian, I'm half Filipino. In the right light, I don't look like it at all. I'm more fair skin. I look more white, definitely. And I get that from my father's side. And yeah, it's tough because I'm like, yeah, I have on my LinkedIn a banner that says like "Stop Asian Hate." I have a poster hanging up in our house that says Black Lives Matter. But it's just these memorials of things, and I see it every week, and I'm like, what does that mean? Black Lives Matter. What does Stop Asian Hate mean? What am I doing actively as a participant in society to back up these signs and back up these posts online? To where I even started this podcast, and I'm like, I want to support LGBTQ lives. I have guests that have come on that identify as queer, friends of mine, people I grew up with, and I still just don't know how to move past just this sign, just this statement. And someone who I had on, she identifies as bi, and she told me, she's like, the best thing that I can do right now is just be open and be available as an ally and speak out. But I wrestle with that idea still of, I want to do more. I don't know how to do more. So how has that been reflected in your life?
Yeah. I don't have any like magical grand plan to share with you of how to ever have that feeling go away. I have that feeling. I constantly feel like I'm not doing enough. And I think that's the secret. I think that's actually, I don't think people understand the amount of humility that is required to try to make the world a better place. As a person with a lot of privilege, I am a white woman. I'm heterosexual. I can claim Christianity, sure. You know, I have body, I am able-bodied. Like there's so many things that are working in my favor, or things that, things that I enjoy. And I think the work is really how to notice those things, and then to work to make sure that everyone has access to those things, regardless if they present like me in the world. And, it's interesting. So I worked at a pretty predominantly white and well-known megachurch for almost 10 years. And I was there from 2011 through 2020, through 2020. Whew. And I feel like that time, I mean, the changes that were happening culturally were so, you could barely keep up. It was so quick. I mean, when I started working at this mega church, one of the things that drew me to it, the very first service that I went to when I started interviewing, was an MLK weekend service. And they were very proactively wanting to engage in conversations of privilege, of race, of racism. And it felt like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like I can throw myself into this, and I'm going to learn so much from them, was really how I felt. And then to leave, I ended in fall of 2020. And I remember, I was just thinking about this the other day. I remember going to, after George Floyd was killed, I remember we couldn't call it a Black Lives Matter anything. So we had a prayer vigil for lives lost to police violence, was what we were allowed to call it. And I just remember like just being like so disappointed. Like it was so bizarre to me. This place that I thought I was going to be learning so much from, and that had candidly like built so much of my justice lens was now like I came up with, I'm a metaphor person, so I came up with this metaphor where it was like, oh my gosh, I felt like this place that I thought I was bringing them this like seed where I was like, please water this. They were watering it for a while, and then probably like 2015, right around like Trump's kind of beginning of rise, and then into 2016 when he became our president. It really felt like that water that was being sprinkled on me turned to like acid. And it was like, oh, you're not watering me anymore. You're like trying to kill me. Like
Wow.
you're trying to shut me up. And it was I don't know if I was able to see it that clearly like during it. But it has been interesting since I have left the church, and I have a couple of friends, Black women in particular, who I was really deeply involved in anti-racism work at the church with. And both of them are authors. And both of them wrote ways that I supported them when we were at the church that to me felt like nothing. Like it felt like, what are you, like, how is that worthy of a story, of you even really remembering it? Like it really wasn't that big of a deal. And I think my encouragement to you and to anyone who is like, I don't know what I like, I know I need to do something, I don't know what it is. It might not feel like big to you, but it might be a bigger deal to those around you because of the absence of support that so many of our like people of color, Black women, people in the LGBTQIA community, like, yeah, it is like so sad how low the hurdle is.
Yeah.
And what I really like took away from what I took away, I literally just found a story. I have a friend who has a book coming out next month, and I was looking through it and I was like, oh my gosh, like it was so small. But I think what that means for people who walk in the world knowing it's not a safe space, if you can be a safe space, that matters. That sense of, not only will I not be attacked here, but maybe I can even like, maybe this can even be like a soft place for me to land. This can be a person where I can say something, I can share a grievance at work, and they're not going to be like, well, have you thought about it from this angle? They're going to just believe me. Like I honestly find believing people in their stories and just being like, I believe you, is 80%. It's so sad. Like it is believing you, and then I'm going to operate in the world differently because of my belief in what you are telling me is true. You telling me that you're afraid for your mom and her physical safety means I am going to operate differently because of that belief, because of that. I don't fear for my mom's physical safety because of the way that she looks, or because of because of the racism that is in other people. And but that doesn't mean that my experience invalidates yours, right? And I just think the more that we validate the experiences of other people regardless of our own, I think that's like steps 2, 3, 4. Because it's hard. It's so easy to be like, that is, not only is that not my experience, like that means that person, like, it just it changes it means that it means you're not the center of the universe, which is also a big part of this work, right? And that just takes a lot of humility to say, my experience is not the only way or the only one. Now my experience matters, but my experience, by knowing your story, now it enhances how I operate and walk in the world. So I have just found that to be true, that the relationships that have stayed after I left the church were the ones where there was trust and there was belief in each other. And I say that's like a two-way street. Like like the Black women that I'm talking about, there was a lot of trust required on their end to show up, share stories of pain or of, hey, my supervisor is asking me these questions. Are they asking you? Like that kind of, like there needs to be like some safety there. And so, but I think that's where like real partnership and allyship can really happen. And that's really where like the beginning of the work begins, because you are now in it for more than just you, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not pursuing inclusion just to be like, I'm so great, like I'm so open-minded. It's like, no, if I'm not doing this work, then these people are at minimum like excluded, at worst like they are harmed or hurt, or like there's some real ramifications here, and it's bigger than just me.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really good. I definitely feel it. I can resonate with everything you're saying because, as for part of my story, I'm also a sexual abuse survivor. And so I think about all the people in my life that have just been available, as it could be pastors or just friends, houses, other parents that were in my sphere of influence, just being available and open to having me be over at their house or just giving me the time to be myself, and how much that has impacted my life. Of there were just all these safe spaces for me in that period, and I wasn't open about my abuse till far into adulthood. So about 9 years ago, I've had this secret unlocked. But for most of all my life, it was just, no, I don't. I'm not going to share and be open about my day-to-day struggles. And so, yeah, I always have to then remind myself of, with allyship, is, yeah, I'm looking at my own stories. There's so much that has been done for me. But I look back and I'm like, it was just, opening your door for me to hang out, offering me a Dr. Pepper, right? Like all these small, quote, like insignificant things, but they were all tiny, like bricks into this house of safety that I could then enjoy. So I have to remind myself of that often, is like, with all these other like things I benefited from, now I have a blueprint on how to move forward to build those houses for other people, and build those safe spaces, because that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted, was to be heard, safe, again, validated. I definitely am a firm believer in that validation piece, because you're right. There are these aspects where it's like, well, my mom isn't like fearing for her life, but mine is. And so
Right.
it's like, does that mean that the world is safe? Not necessarily. It's just, it's for me and my family, it wasn't safe during COVID. It was very, very hard because there was a lot of blame towards Asians, and my mom's Filipino. It's like, that's not even where COVID came from. That's like a completely different country, but it's just like, oh, by association of like the word Asian, um, you're the reason why we have to be in lockdown. You're the reason of all this social unrest. You're the like, just trying to pin it on someone else. Was
I can't
hard.
remember. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm so sorry that is part of your story, but I absolutely was thinking about what I've learned from,
Yeah.
the church that I worked at. We had like a church to, I don't even call it scandal. I just like, it's so much bigger than that. Like when it's happening, it's everything. I mean, it really, like, I feel like it imploded so much. And that was in 2018. And our senior pastor stepped down, and it was such a clearly, it was like the most clear, whose side are you on, like, experience I've ever had. And who do you believe? Whose stories do you believe? And there is so much that I learned from watching that unfold, of just the power of, like, the power of believing people, and the power of believing, like, I remember, like, the weekend after it was announced that there were like 9 allegations or something. I mean, it was like a really big, it was many women that came forward. And I remember like Googling, like, if people say that they've been like abused, like what percentage are lying? You know, like I just remember like looking, and it's like such a small percentage. And
Yeah.
it's also like, you have to be thinking about, I mean, so much of what I think is implied here is power, right? Is who has power, who's abusing their power, who's, you know, whether it's like a child or if it's a prominent evangelical megachurch pastor who claims to be egalitarian and, you know, like loves women, and, you know, I'm like, gosh,
Yeah.
like, but I digress. As you were just talking, like, where did I had a thought that I wanted to follow. I don't think we talk enough about the risk that it is, like that it actually does take risk believing someone's story when it challenges your own. Like, and I think there are so many, that's why stories are so powerful, because I remember hearing, gosh, this was a while ago when I used to listen to podcasts more regularly, because now I don't really drive as much. And so I'm like, gosh, when do I get my podcast on?
Yeah, I get
But
it.
but I was listening to, I think it was an episode of This American Life, and they were talking about how do you get people to change how do you get someone to change their mind? And what they were talking about was abortion. And they, in this particular instance, there was a study where this group of people, I think they went door to door, and first they just presented people with like statistics, right? It was like, you know, this many people that get abortions are already moms, or this is the percentage that are at this point in the poverty line, or maybe even talking about like percentages of like rape or incest, or, you know, just really coming at it like very like data heavy. And then they would say, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, like how much did we change your mind? And it never moved. And then they had someone who had needed an abortion, and she went door to door and she told her story. And the numbers changed dramatically, where people were able to enter in and say, they could empathize and they could say, wow, I can put myself in your shoes and see what I would want, or how I would want to be treated in that. And it's wild. It's just wild, the power of story. And it's wild, the power of believing someone's story. Like, I think we talk about storytelling, unlocking things, and it's like, they're only going to be able to unlock as much as people believe. Right. And so, there are, I mean, that's why there are literal hashtags like believe women or believe Black women, because the muscle memory in so many of us is to do what I did and say, how many people who are reporting abuse are lying about it? Because like, now how I view this pastor in my life, now I have to renegotiate everything about him. Every interaction I'm now combing through, I'm recognizing that, hey, guess what? This is a person who I don't get to say is like all good or all bad. Like, I think it takes courage to believe people's stories when they challenge your own. And I don't want to move past. I mean, I think it's again, so basic, but I think a lot of people get stuck there. A lot of people get stuck in the like, oh, but that's like not how it was for me. And there's so much pain in acknowledging like our own stories, or people that haven't like done the work of processing their own stories. that it's like, wait, I'm going to be left. Like, if we're only talking about your pain, then my pain won't get acknowledged. And it's like, the message is there is room for all of, like, let the points of pain connection like bond you closer, not be like a wedge between you and like another person or group of people that you're hearing collectively from. I remember what I was going to say earlier, and I cannot remember who said this, so I don't have the person to attribute the quote to, but they just said that pain needs a home. And as you were talking about, 2020 and your mom, when you're like, this doesn't even make sense. She's not even from like the actual country, like where this started. I just was reminded of that people need a place to put their pain and their anger. And a lot of like racism, homophobia, being anti-women, like those are all very well-worn containers, and you can just like jump right in very easily, and your pain will find a place there very quickly. And I think that is so important to think about. Like, where do we put our pain? Like, when you decided to open up and tell your story, how did, like, that could have bound you into more pain, and maybe it did for a long time. I don't know. But pain is like a catalyst, and it can either like catapult you towards change and growth and freedom, or it can catapult you towards more pain and addiction and destruction and addiction to hate and isms and all these other things. But it has to go somewhere. And so I think the better we are at naming, like, I'm in pain and I'm tempted to put it here, but I'm going to choose to do the harder thing and process it, that's like worth fighting for and worth acknowledging. So does that resonate with you? Like, how did you decide to share your story?
It does resonate. I didn't really decide. It's like you said, pain needs to go somewhere. So a big part, I kept finding myself in an unhealthy cycle of stealing and hurting people, stealing money, and hurting people close to me. And so I was just, I was caught in that cycle. And then shortly after I got married to my wife, we were arguing about something. We don't remember at all what it was, but I was arguing, and I just all of a sudden just got super upset, but not at her. And I like ran to our room, and I had a photo album, and then I just started tearing up photos of my older brother, who was my abuser. And I was just in so much pain, so much hurt. And then I told my wife, I was like, I think what this unhealthy cycle that I'm in, that I keep finding myself in, is attributed to this pain, and this very real secret that I even locked away from myself and just needed to get out. And so as you're saying, pain needs to go somewhere. I definitely resonate with that. And so, I didn't want to share that. I wanted to keep it locked away and neat and tidy, because if you come out, it's one thing to come out with an abuser, but then if that abuser is your brother, and then family dynamics and everything just shatters and changes. And again, like I said, growing up, I wanted that safe space. I wanted to feel safe. And so shattering a family that I should feel safe in, right? Family homes, just a family tree, like the system I should feel safe in is no longer safe for me. And so I had to come out. And so I finally was in a spot where I'm married. My wife, my fiance, my girlfriend, like throughout, she knew me through the cycle of stealing, and she continued to listen, like ask me, how are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like genuinely caring for me, to where the point now I'm married and we're committed to each other. I feel ultimate like safety.
Mm.
I have a friend who's about to get married in a couple weeks, and I was just on the phone before this call, and I asked him what he is looking forward to about being married. He said he's excited for that ultimate like promise of safety from his wife and just being committed in that way. And I was like, it definitely like feel that like that is exciting. That is a good thing to look forward to. Obviously that's not the case for every marriage, but for him and for myself, it's like that's what we look forward to, and that's what we're gaining from our relationships. Yeah, I wanted to say something else, but again, like you, I don't know where this is going. I keep going in a circle. But
no, that's great. I think it's interesting, like just talking about marriage, and you know, I know I haven't really been talking about my book very much, but
you're good.
when I was when I was working on my book, and like, I'm combing over all these memories because my book is very much rooted in my experiences, and that was really important to me. So I started working on the book in 2019, and it was being shopped around summer of 2020, which was a very bizarre time to be working on a project that when I started on it felt kind of like on the outskirts of topics that, normal everyday suburban moms were talking about. And now all of a sudden, like my next door neighbor and I are talking about abolishing the police. And I'm like, what is happening? But one of the things that I kept coming back to was where the title of the book comes from. And it was a trip that I went on in college. And it was like a 3-day racial justice journey where there were 40 white students on the trip, and there were 40 Black students. Is that right? It was either 20 and 20 or 40 and 40. I think there were 80 of us. And it was unbelievably powerful. And not just because we were seeing like where MLK was shot and killed, or going to we went to like a lynching museum, which was as horrific as it sounds. We went to a working plantation where history was being rewritten right before us as they were talking about, this was a place, don't worry, this was a place where there were good slave owners. So I'm seeing all these things and processing them through my lens, but then I have a partner, and my partner is a Black girl who's my year in college. And it was so powerful to process it side by side with her. And there was a moment on the bus where really it kind of goes to what we were just talking about, of people's stories and experiences were not being believed by the white students. And that was happening kind of again and again. And excuses were being made, like very unsound arguments, like, well, what about the Holocaust? Why aren't we talking about the Holocaust right now? And it's like, well, we're not talking about the Holocaust because that's not what we're talking about. Like, we can talk about that later. Yes, that is horrible. Right now we're talking about this. But I had this moment where I walked to the front of the bus, and I was basically just saying, I believe you, to the Black students. Like, I believe the things that I've seen. And because of that belief, like, I want to do something. And there was like a moment where there was applause from several of the Black students on the bus. And I just, like, something inside me broke. And it was literally like the most unbelievable conversion moment that I've ever heard outside of like a faith experience, or that I've ever had outside of a faith experience, where it was like, oh my gosh, like, I used to see the world one way and now I see it another. And then I said the words, doing nothing is no longer an option for me. And in that moment, it was almost like a vow that I was making. Like, I vow that will be true. Like, I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying it will be done tomorrow, but like living the life the way that I have, where I've just been concerned about how I'm seen as opposed to like what I'm actually doing to make the world better, not just for me and my like future generation, of my own kids and my own family, but for like you and your future generation and you,
Yeah.
you know, it really did anchor me to this work in a profound way. And I think I really resonate. I feel a lot of safety in my actual marriage, but I really resonate with that. That sense of commitment is freeing. And I have found
Yeah.
that in this work that I stumbled around. Like, I don't know. I mean, I've been in Minnesota like 8 months and I haven't been engaged as actively in the community here as I have wanted to. Well, okay. Have I been talking to my kids? Have I been, you know, doing other things? So it takes, because I know that I will always be pursuing more than I'm doing today. Like there is a sense of, I don't want to call it relief, but there is a peace knowing that I am committed. I am in.
Yeah.
This isn't going anywhere. This work is not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I am committed to the work and committed to like marriage, like walking through it. Like I've, you know, so many people talk about like their like anti-racism journey. And I often say, I feel like I'm in a relationship with anti-racism. Like I feel like I am
Yeah.
committed to it the way you are in a relationship.
Yeah.
And that has helped. And I didn't start out that way. This is only, you know, this is like a recent kind of understanding of how I view my work. But it is a lot more freeing of being like, I'm never going to do enough. I can always be doing more.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else is
Yeah.
new? So what are you going to, so what is like in your orbit and what can you uniquely do that nobody else can do? And what are ways that, yeah, you do need to step up. But having that rooted and anchored in commitment and in like a deep belief is so much, I think, has so much. I feel like I am going to be, there's a longevity piece to that, right? Because it's not so, well, it's not shame driven and it's not performance driven. It's deeper than those things. It's joy driven. It's driven by love for myself and for the work that I'm pursuing. So I just, you know, I think I would invite more people to figure out what are the things that are going to anchor you to the work of radical inclusion and radical love. And that might actually look really ordinary. And that's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, like, that's great. Cause yeah, I mean, just, just thinking back. So like, yeah, like, you know, I grew up white evangelical church spaces. I grew up during conferences like Acquire the Fire. And I went to things like See You at the Pole where you're, you know, just like evangelizing, you're witnessing to people and we're just like, are you on fire or not? Like that was such a normal check-in question at youth group, right? Like, oh, like, are you backsliding or, you know, how's your walk? Like, but just this like on fire mentality is so dangerous. Like you're going to burn out. Nothing can stay on fire forever. And so how do you tend to the candle that you're just trying to maintain? I don't know. I don't know where the metaphor goes, but like, I just think this like, like I did, you know, I'm just like this. So many people can, if everyone can look and point to like all the ways that you're being an activist, like, I don't want to say there's a wrong way to do this. So like, I don't want to say that at all, but just like, how do you make sure that you're in this for the long game? Because we need people in this for the long game.
Yeah.
Like, do we know how many laws have come out since 2020? How many police budgets have increased as opposed to decrease? How like the incarceration rate those percentages of who is incarcerated and who is not, that has not changed. So we need people for the long haul, not just for like those moments where it's hyper visible. We need people for those moments too. But the longer I'm in this work, the more I think it's about playing the long game and not those like moments where everybody kind of is like talking about it. But like, what are you doing when nobody's talking about it? And what are you doing when not only are they not talking about it, but now they're secretly going back and stripping any people of color that they hired or put into positions of like diversity, equity, inclusion work, or you see this across states where they're banning those offices from even being in universities. Or, I mean, it is easier in so many ways than ever to be an activist, because there's so much that's been it's kind of this like white backlash of 2020 that we're experiencing. And so it can be as big as those things or as small as talking to your kids about not just like who they're learning about in Black History Month, if your state allows your school to do that, but to be talking about, like people today, or what they're helping them understand privilege, helping, just like all these things, like these things really matter, and they seem really ordinary, but they really do add up and they matter. And they're things that you have control over. I think a lot of times when we're looking at the world, we hyper focus on the things that are outside of our control, because that's easy. It's easy to like, oh, this thing or this thing. It's like, okay, yes. Hey, and who's in your house? Who do you have influence over? Where is your money going towards? Like, what budget meetings are you attending? What questions are you asking if you're still at a church? Just like all these things, like it's so much easier to be like, why aren't, like, I just get so frustrated when I see the conversation, and I get it. It's so tempting. It's so easy to be like, why aren't those people doing more? And it's like, I really want my energy to be spent into asking myself that question, but rooted not in like anger and shame, but rooted in like, I want to be doing more because I really believe in this.
Yeah, those are all good things. I had a guest on, don't know if you're familiar with, Britt Barron. She's a pastor. She was on and we were talking about affirming churches, like inclusivity. And she mentioned there's like the stigma around like entering being an activist or entering how to be an ally, of like, well, I don't have the right words, or oh, you don't say the right words, so now you can't like join our organization, and having to like hit all these check marks. And then I pair that with the idea of love your neighbor as yourself, and like, well, how are we supposed to love our neighbor if we don't love ourselves? And so both hand in hand is, I can just start. Like, I can just start being an ally. I can just start going in. I might not have the words. I might not have all the qualifications and know all the history, but I can just show up. I can just do the little mundane things, attending a budget meeting, like you said, listening to people's stories, validating them, stuff that seems so small, but it has a huge impact. But then also pairing it with working on yourself and learning, reflecting on your own story of what systems have I been a part of, have benefited out of privilege. Maybe how have I accidentally or purposely hurt other people that are oppressed in any category, and continue to work on yourself by going through therapy, maybe doing some programs, maybe going some classes and educating yourself. And so doing both those things together, I feel like are huge. And definitely a step in the right direction. And so, I think of that. And then definitely storytelling, listening to people's stories, sharing your own experiences, understanding as much context as you can possibly get, because there's suffering everywhere. Everyone is suffering in any which way. And so when you brought up on your trip, it was like, why aren't we talking about the Holocaust? It's like, well, yes, that's also bad, but like the slave movement in America was also huge and very sad and very destructive. And it's not to say one was worse than the other, but sitting in each of these oppressed groups and saying, we're all suffering. Like,
Yeah.
we all can do better in these areas. And so just stepping into those conversations, I definitely find beneficial for myself, and I feel like are beneficial for society as a whole. And I would like to see more of that. And like you said, maybe you're right now, Jenny, where you're at, it's like not doing as much work, but you're having conversations with your kids. You're having conversations within your home unit. Like your kids are the next generation. Like you don't know where they're going to end up, but these conversations that you're having right now are going to make a huge impact when they're older. And I have to think about that with my kids as well. It's like what I am showing them, the cultures I'm inviting them into through like food, religions, like all this stuff, like so many entry points in.
Yeah.
And you have to think like, yeah, you might not have the words right now, but no one ever does that first.
Like, I love that. And I remember before I had my kids, I remember listening to a podcast and they were talking to your kids about race. And they said, start when they are newborns. And that's not because they're going to actually understand you. It's so that you get practiced. Because I think a lot of this, a lot of the conversations we're in and a lot of the work that we are doing as people who are trying to make the world more just and inclusive for people is we were not handed any examples of how to do this work. We are completely starting from scratch. And in fact, what we were handed is racism. We weren't, like, you don't know terms because you weren't supposed to. You don't know accurate history because you weren't supposed to. So go easy, like let that sink in, that anything you're learning about accurate history or terminology, which matters, right? Like, it helps us have access points and it should be a source of connection of like, yes, like what does this, mean to you? Let's talk about these things. Let's be curious in our conversations. And one of the things I get so like eye rolly over is this like precise, like, ooh, let's just get it down to like the nitty gritty of what this word can mean and only mean. And we're arguing about things that I'm like, does this matter if it's this term or this term, if it doesn't actually free anyone or change anyone's, like, I absolutely believe that there is a time and a place for discourse, and that really does matter.
Yeah.
And also, can we get past that? Because I say this to my kids a lot. They're 7 and 9 now. And so they're, especially my 9-year-old loves to be right. Being right really matters to him. And it really matters to me. I understand this. I want to be right.
Yeah.
I love, like, there is almost nothing you can say that will like fill me up more than you were right on that, Jenny. I'm like, thank you. Yes. But I say to them, like, you can be right or you can be in a relationship. And sometimes those things are at odds. And I feel like a lot of what is keeping people, especially people that are maybe like listening to this podcast or that are more like progressive,
right,
is not the fear of what crazy homophobic racists are going to say. It's what our peers are going to say about us. Like, I just saw this discourse online on social media, and it was about capitalizing the W in white and whether or not we should. And it was like a fantastic conversation. And so I was like, oh, I did capitalize the W in white in my book. Okay. Like, be like, so much of my book is about getting comfortable with being wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's about getting comfortable with making mistakes. It's about getting comfortable with saying the wrong thing. Because what that means if you're making mistakes is it means you're moving and you're taking action and you're taking a risk. And we can't be so damn scared of saying the wrong thing that we say nothing. And I think that's what that's just what happens.
Yeah.
Because saying something makes us uncomfortable and we are hardwired for comfort. And so I just think the more we can get, the more you practice so that you're like, oh, I'm going to say this to my newborn who doesn't know what I'm saying, but at least I'm now, okay, like maybe I should say people that were enslaved as opposed to slaves. Okay, like I'm working that out. Great. But just making sure that you're taking that, like that you're living a life that can be criticized for action, not just for like thought and theory, right?
Yeah.
I don't quote the Bible a lot, but like the whole like faith without works is dead. Like I don't need to belabor definitions or like how something was said. And also that is very much like, I just think about the activists I respect the most, and they're out there like doing the work and less interested in getting the conversation exactly right or exactly figured out, right?
Yeah.
And there's like an education access piece there that I think keeps people feeling like they're making forward motion, but really what you're doing is just talking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's encouraging or discouraging, but it's just, it's something I'm noticing. It's something I'm noticing in like the people that I continue to do this work with are telling me examples of like ways that they raised their hands and asked hard questions at their workplace. It's not about them monitoring a comment section and making sure that this person said it the exact right way. Like,
yeah.
That's who I want to like build a better world with, the people that are doing it and like making mistakes as we go and saying, we believe in something bigger. This is bigger than just myself. And I make that sound so simple, and it is, but it is really hard. And so I like agree with everything you're saying of pursuing anti-racism work as like a white woman is such a like constant duality of centering myself and then instantly decentering. Like it's that entering in and grappling like with what ways am I a barrier, and then okay, now getting out of the way, or now stepping in and taking a risk. It's a weird, like, you as a person matter in how you show up to this work. And so doing your own work to be healed and well and rooted in love and humility and community, like that takes a lot of work and effort. So I don't mean to like gloss over it, like just do these things, because I know I know it's hard, and I know it's countercultural. And for a lot of us, we're having to do this. We're having to make these communities up, because from my experience, I thought the community that I was going to be doing this work with was within the church. And that isn't. And so it's healing from that hurt and pain and like continuing on anyway and making a new container for this work. And so, yeah, it is not easy, but it is absolutely, I think, the only way.
Yeah. I definitely resonate with a lot of what you're saying. Well, if not all of it. Because definitely, what I set out to do with this podcast is to be inclusive of all views and perspectives around faith and deconstruction and what it means to be a Christian, and just all people's experiences with the church, hurt, trauma, abuse, spiritual, physical, sexual, like everything that kind of falls under that umbrella. And I bump up against that, like, of how do I hold space for both of these conversations? Because one week I have a guest on that is in love with church. That's their whole identity. They love going every Sunday. They love what they're learning. They love everything about it. And then the next week it's someone who's been traumatized by the church. Like, it's very hard for them to even think about going to church. And then, they're a guest, they're a listener of the podcast. And so then they have to kind of wrestle with that idea of, oh no, I'm listening to an episode about someone that loves church, but that's not for me right now. Or I don't see myself going back. And in a way, it's triggering of, oh, I'm hearing someone talk about worship and their experiences. And then you have to revisit all those like memories you have tied to your own identity, and wrestle with them. And even when I go back and edit episodes or I revisit them and I'm listening to conversations and I'm just like heartbroken. I'm like, this experience this person has endured and seemingly triumphed, but they're still dealing with the repercussions of their life experiences day to day. Like, it's just so sad. I'm like, why? So yeah, within all these episodes, I have to ask myself, and I challenge listeners too, is like, why does this make you uncomfortable? Why is this triggering? Why do you want to fight against this? Why do you not want to validate this person's experience? Why are you, just like defensive and on high alert with kind of any episode? And I think that's a good spot to be, but it's a very difficult spot to be. Like, the idea of both with these ideas and activism, and whether it's racism or any of these isms, as you're saying, is, there's one part where you're like, oh, it's really good. Like, you need to hear both sides of the story. One, because I'm like, if you want your story to be heard, then you should listen to the other side as well. Because it doesn't necessarily invalidate, like we were saying earlier, like, just because I'm afraid my mom's going to get beat up and yours is not, it's like, it doesn't mean this isn't true.
Right.
And even as, again, Britt Barron was on, she's like, two things can be true at the same time. Like, her experience in youth group was amazing, but she also understands the dark side of it as well, like, within her own identity in the church system. And so, it's hard. And I don't think I'll ever find that balance, but all I can do is show up, ask the questions, engage in the stories, validate people, and try to be that safe space for all stories to kind of be heard and understood, and not feel like, hey, you have to come on and like defend everything that you're doing and all your beliefs and why you're a part of a church or not. And so I struggle with that both, and I'm sure you do too, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, like, because I don't think I'm done with the church. I don't think I've completely, I just got to a point, I like to quote people so much. So Maya Angelou says, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. And I didn't believe the white evangelical megachurch that I was a part of the first time when there were starting to be red flags, right? Where it became clear that this wasn't just a big ship that takes a long time to turn. You're headed in the direction that you want to go. And I need to decide if I'm going in that direction with you or if I'm getting off. I think there was a long time where I really thought my energy in fighting in honestly in the church and in my anti-racism work, I really thought people just didn't know. I just thought people didn't know that there were other ways of understanding the gospel. That maybe this is bigger than just writing 3 people down on a piece of paper that you're going to invite to church next week, but maybe we should be trying to be more Christ-like and actually like flipping tables and hanging out with the people that Jesus would have been hanging out with, which our current policy at the church I was at was absolutely not it was not welcoming to all people. And I just thought they didn't know. I thought they didn't know, like, oh, maybe they just haven't had enough. They haven't met enough gay people. They need to, we need to have our own Sankofa type trip to the South, and then they'll hear stories, and like, they just didn't know. I was on that train for a really long time. I keep moving vehicles. I'm on a boat now. I'm on a train. But
You're moving.
They're moving. And I just thought like, oh, and then we'll reorient once they understand, once they see this. Like if I leave, who's going to show them this other way? And I did that for years, and then realized they were going the direction. And 2020 really showed me that. If you, after Trump and after George Floyd and so many other I really feel like, I have a friend that co-started Church Clarity, which is a website you can go to and see if people, about this. But seeing like where churches stand, right? That it wasn't okay to say we haven't landed yet. Like, for more and more churches. And so I feel like 2020 was just like a doubling down for so many institutions. And it really was. It's like, if you can't even say we're having a Black Lives Matter protest, what am I doing here? Summer of 2020, we can't say Black Lives Matter. I cannot change you. You do not want to be changed. And so what I'm and my family is trying to figure out is, what are the churches that we don't have to change, but also having grace for the people that are still part of this old church that I used to believe in so much, that I gave like so much of my life to, and like radically believed and had such a deep sense of belonging there. Like, I get it. And I think enough time for a while, I couldn't even drive by the building. It's like, I can't even, I'm like on the same street as the church, and I like physically feel like my body remembers this feeling of trauma, of pain. And that's lessened and lessened. And so I don't know how to make sense of why some people are still there, but like, I'm not still there, and that's all that I can have control over. And that's all that really matters. And so now I have to do the probably much harder work of like, so what does a faith in our family look like going forward? And what kind of a church do we want to participate in? And, but I definitely recognize that sense of like, how in the world can they be part of something that I couldn't even like drive down the street, and they're like posting about it and loving it. I'm like, wow, are we experiencing this differently? I don't know if it's just like healing, if it's just trying to belong to myself more than like any institution. I think it's probably a combination of those things, but I definitely understand how people would have a hard time listening to people raving about the church that they're involved with, when they're like, what are you saying? And I can also, on the flip side, see like, why have you given up on this? Right. I had people when I was leaving, they were like, no, you can't go, because if you go, I'm not going to like feel as confident. I was kind of like a troublemaker in some ways at the church that I was part of. And I think a lot of people felt scared, like, if I'm going to have to do this alone, or so it's hard. It's really hard when it's such a big part of your identity and your sense of belonging.
Mm. And then to kind of wrap up, I have two questions. The
Mm-hmm.
first being, what would you tell your younger self? And we'll just start there, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll share the second one. What would you go back and tell young Jenny throughout all your experiences? What would
Mm-hmm.
you say?
I think I would say two things, which is you're doing great and it's going to be different and even better than you imagined. Life.
Yeah. And then last, what's one thing you want people to kind of know about you walking away from this conversation?
Yeah, I think if people resonate with any part of my story, I would absolutely encourage them to read my book. It's been out a year and a half, which gives me enough time to be like, oh gosh, do I hope nobody reads this by the feedback I've gotten and by, kind of
Yeah.
revisiting it myself or
Mm.
sitting with it and being like, yeah, I stand by that. And I still really stand by my book. I think especially for people, read my book, don't read my book, it's fine. I will say you are not alone. I think that's what I want people. I know that's not about me, but I want them to know like they are not alone. There are other people that see the world the way that you do, that are frustrated, that are feeling unsure of how they can make a difference. And that this work of being the one to say, I want it to be better is hard and it can often be lonely. And you might have to be the first one in your specific situation or circle, but you are not alone in that there are other people that are on the same journey as you are. And I'm one of them.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing so much insight and so much of your story. And definitely encourage listeners to get your book and listen to it.
Yeah.
I listen to it because I'm not a big reader, but I listen to it because it's just so much better. So much because then I get a sense of how does the author feel about what is being said, and I feel like I heard a lot of your passion, your heartbreak, excitement, and joy, and just all the fluctuations of emotions that you could feel with sharing your story. So thank you.
Can I tell you one funny? Well, I don't know, it's not funny. One like behind the scenes story of recording my audiobook. So I was living in the Chicago suburbs at the time and my publisher set me up with a recording studio in the city. So I go in first day and the sound engineer is this white guy, probably in his early to mid 50s. And it's a very intimate experience. It's kind of like, I'm reading every single word and he's listening to every single word because copyright wise, I have to say every single word exactly as is for like copyright legal reasons. So he's not just like there making sure it's recording. He is like listening to every single word. If I say a the when it's supposed to be an A, he's like, oh, it's supposed to be an A there. So like, oh my gosh, like what is this guy thinking about my book? Like, and it was so interesting. So the first day he's, we're kind of chatting during the break and he's talking about kind of like, I always thought colorblind was like the way to go, but your book is like really making me question that. And I was like, yeah, great. And by the end, Nick, it's 5 days of recording. The 5th day, we're wrapping up, and he's like, Jenny, I realized I'm a racist. And he kind of confesses this to me, and he ended up coming to my book launch party. I mean, like, it was just this like really wild. Yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh, what is this white guy in his 50s thinking about this book? And that it like moved him even just from being on his side of the audio file or whatever. So that was just like a fun, but I had such an amazing experience recording it. So thank you so much for listening. It is available on Audible and Spotify. I think you can also, it's part of their audiobook package as well. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Nick.